for your patience, guys. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today on a cloudy Sydney morning. Today will be quite interesting because we'll be talking about robotic process automation, one of the IBM products that we as Octane deal with, and get a feel for why it's creating a lot of buzz in the market, especially in the current climate. Before we kick in, we've got Michael who will join us a bit later, and we've got Miko from IBM who will also take us through a bit of a demo and a show and tell on what RPA does and how easily it can be set up and the power it brings. Before we jump into that, a bit about us and a bit of housekeeping. You are able to send in your questions via chat or Q&A, and we'll try and answer and capture all the questions in the end and answer the questions. We've also got a very special offer for everyone who is joining in today. So in the end, we'll tell you what that is about and how you can redeem that. If there is any other details, it's in a listen-only mode for all the audience. So the best way to approach us would be via the chat during the webinar. But in the end, we might open it up for discussion as we go. All right, so a bit about Octane, just to set the scene. Octane, we are IBM Gold Partner, headquartered in Sydney, but offices in multiple countries. These are some of the highlight numbers that we've got. We've got just at a quick stats. We are in the numbers game after all. More than 86,000 hours spent on projects. We are a specialist Tier 1 FP&A vendor. We've got more. We support more than 5,000 users globally, and under our belt we've got more than 100 deployments, 100 projects of all types, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. Our tagline is that we go the extra mile so you can go the distance. What this really means is that one of our key features is our client satisfaction. So we consistently rate very, very highly with the client feedbacks, and we genuinely are quite passionate about the space we work in. All of us in my team, we've been working together for a long time, even pre-Octane. Most of us were together in different places, and we actually get a good buzz out of getting a good delivery done. Our customer attrition rate is under 1%, and this is something that we're quite proud of. We've lost one client, and that is painful, but we've made sure that it doesn't happen again. So this is a testament to when we say we go the extra mile, this is the result of that. That when we have a customer or we sign up a customer, because of the service, because of the price point, because of the quality, it is more than likely you will stay with us for a long time. We work with some of the most well-known brands globally. So some of our clients range from some of the largest global banks to telcos, government departments, airlines. Apart from that, we've got a large number of retailers here in Australia, fintechs. Most of us have come out from the financial services area, so we're quite strong in that space as well. And retail are probably the two growth areas that we're seeing within Octane at the moment. What we do for these clients range from a number of things. So as I mentioned earlier, that we are a specialist FP&A vendor, which means we are specialized in taking the finance team. So we generally work with the Office of CFO and supply applications and functionality to allow them to automate, be it budgeting, forecasting, reporting, dashboards, and things like that. So as part of an extension of that, we latched on to the RPA from IBM, which is a robotic process automation, and we'll learn a lot more about that today as an extension to what we already do. And from what we've seen already, it is a big differentiator for the finance team, especially in the current climate. So what COVID has done is it has put to surface some of the inefficiencies that we might have. It forced us to work from home. It probably made it pretty obvious. We've been talking about how most accounting teams live in Excel hell. It brought to the forefront that what difference having a good system, a good automation tool can do, and how it can eliminate the errors or the process work. Today we'll be focusing a lot more on the automation side, which is how to eliminate the process work, the more manual tasks that you might be doing, and that also allows the finance team to uplift the skill set. So you don't want to hire CPAs and get them and do Excel formulas day in, day out and doing reconciliations. The whole world is moving towards automation and trying to use technology as much as possible to streamline what they do. And if you don't jump onto this bandwagon, you will find even more difficult to attract staff. So we already see in the news media about the great resignation that's coming. So imagine if you are one of those finance shops which is run manually, doesn't have up-to-date systems, it will become very, very difficult for you to hire and retain good financial staff as well, or good accountants. The opportunities for automation are all across the place. So we see through the whole spectrum of our enterprise when you look at where the manual tasks are and where it can be automated. So this slide sort of depicts that it goes all around the enterprise. We as Octane focus a lot more on the financial management and planning, where we using RPA, typically you'd be speed order to cash or reduce the time from procure to pay. And the other thing is around the risk and compliance. So using a tool like RPA, you would ensure that you automate and built in things that would reduce the risk for you. What I'll do now is I'll hand over to Mikko and Michael to take us through the presentation. Give me a minute. I'll hand over to Mikko to run the slides now.
Okay, cool. Just make me a presenter.
Yep.
Perfect. And glad to be here. I wish I was actually there with you all. Can you hear me, Mendra? Yes?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
I love spending time in Australia, and it's been unfortunate because I normally go every quarter and I get to spend time meeting our customers and our partners as we're driving the automation mission. But you know, with the pandemic, it's been a little bit more challenging. So I'm looking forward to when the borders open up, so I can meet each of you know, the participants in this webinar and be able to share a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I want to.
Sorry, Michael. Just a sec. Can you please make me a presenter first, so I can just share my slides?
All right. I'll do that, Mikko.
Okay, cool.
You are to present.
Yeah, that is fine.
Great. So as we're kind of getting through the presentation, I'm definitely not a person that likes to stand behind a bunch of slides and talk through it. So I'll be very brief because I'd like for us to spend more time looking at the products and the capabilities of what we're doing around automation. If we go to the first slide, this is really kind of the theme of what Amendra was talking about. Go to the next slide, real quick, Mikko.
Yep. Yes.
All right. So when I look at this problem, this is a worldwide problem, and we spend a lot of time talking with analyst firms, and we talk to a lot of our customers. And the number is like dramatic. And why I say it's so dramatic is the amount of work that we're asked to do is growing exponentially. I would say since the pandemic, I would say that I work probably 40% more than when I worked in the office. A lot of it was because there were gaps in a lot of organizations, their business processes. And when you're in the office with your team, it's easy to kind of hide the gaps that are in the process. But whereas the organization had to work in an out of office workspace, it made it quite challenging. The gaps were actually exemplified, which means that people had to spend more times in meetings, and they had to do status reports and updates, which really kind of exposed that the process within the business didn't meet the demand of what the customer, where the business need to grow and the customers actually needed us to be. And so when we talk about releasing labor, we're talking about $134 billion of released labor. That just means, a lot of companies operate with all these gaps, and we want to look at automation technology to address those gaps and actually fix the operational gaps they have in their business processes. And we do that using AI powered automation technology. And RPA is definitely one of those, but really, when I think about automation, it's not just about a particular technology, it's about how do you apply it? So for instance, RPA really attacks tasks that are doing there. Robotic process automation, and think of it as a way to mimic what humans do when they're doing different work streams. Like for instance, I just told you 40% of my workload went up, and a lot of it was doing status reports. And a lot of times when I do status reports, what I'm doing is I'm going to a system, logging in, getting information, and then putting it into a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel spreadsheet, run some formulas, and then it generates a report that I can, share with my leadership team. And that is a big piece of work. And 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing status reports and updates, it uses a lot of my time so that I'm not working a typical 8 to 9 hour day. I end up working a 12 to 14 hour day, which is where we're talking about that $134 billion of tasks. It's that additional added on work that you had to do in your job because of these broken processes. And so what our technology is really there is to, one, address the gaps in the broken processes and look at some of that repetitive work that you do and leverage technology to go and solve those problems. Now, if you go to the next slide, when you think about RPA, we think about creating bots. And bots in the previous form of RPA was really about looking at repetitive, mundane tasks and just recording what it does and then repeating it over time. And that's really where kind of the RPA paradigm kind of grew, because there's a lot of work that we discussed, just as I mentioned to you earlier, that's very repetitive. I go take information from one system, I put it into another system, maybe I massage the data, and then I pass it to the next person. So typically RPA in kind of early forms, that's what it was really used for. Think of it as a macro to kind of record what people do. Now, as things become a little bit more complicated, you need to figure out how to humanize that, which means how do I not just look at data, moving data from one system to another, but why am I moving that data? What is the context of that data? What is that data going to do? Like, why should I pass this particular information versus something else to my leadership team? So when you humanize the bot, what it's actually doing is it's trying to understand the context of what you're trying to do, the context of the work that you're doing, and be able to, give you patterns of work and understand. And that's where you kind of incorporate natural AI. We have natural language processing, which, let's say if you want to have an interaction with a bot, being able to share what kind of work you're trying to do, you can actually talk to it and it will respond and understand what you're doing, and it will actually go and perform the task that you're doing. So that's when we're talking about humanizing the bot. Remember before, it was repetitive. Today, a lot of the bots are about humanizing the work. And then where we're seeing the future go is about applying intelligence. It's about the automation understanding what work needs to be done. So remember, repetitive task is just doing something that you already know. Humanizing tasks is to understand context. But when you apply intelligence to it, it's actually discovering work, and it's actually going to do the work for you. Instead of you having to go and initiate it, the engine itself will start looking at, hey, wait a second, I remember whenever someone asks this particular question, this is the way that Michael typically responds. And so it's applying intelligence and learning the patterns of work and start dynamically building bot scripts or engines so that they can actually complete that work. And that's really where we're seeing the evolution of robots. I don't know where you are in your journey. Some people might not even have started with repetitive bots. But in the very first stage is look for simplistic processes or tasks that you can do that's repetitive. You can use bots to do that. The second is starting to understand context. And then third, you're going to have, I always call it the autopilot version of the bot, where the bot will start understanding different work patterns that are actually happening and be able to dynamically create bot scripts or actions to complete the work. And that's really the evolution of RPA over time. Now, in the past, you should be able to do repetitive stuff with just bots. Humanization actually requires workflow technology. And intelligence is kind of a new realm of technology, what we started to hear in the market called process mining, where you're actually able to understand events that are occurring and start gathering intelligence and context of the different types of work streams that you have. All right? Now, next slide. You can apply these types of automations in many different industries. Most common one is banking and insurance. I mean, again, this is a financial services conference, so you are the leading consumers of RPA technology. I would say that roughly, I don't know, 45% of the bots that are deployed all over the world is specifically focused in financial services. It's probably the largest sector that actually deploys bots. And they do it because, you know, at the end of the day, you want to be able to respond to your customers very fastly. You want to onboard them fastly. You want to give a quicker way that they have the best customer service so they stay with you as a customer. So banking is a huge area that bots are being used. Additionally, I would say healthcare, insurance. I mean, we have a lot of use cases where hospitals today are using bots to plan out their COVID shots or handle patient care or even take registrations for appointments. Those are all done by bots. Interesting enough, that has really helped accelerate. And we became, with our automation technology, been a huge proponent of helping to drive the recovery of this pandemic. And then they're across multiple different industries. You know, I can tell you a couple transportation companies, some of the major airlines are actually using them actually for onboarding or ticket resolution. IT organizations leverage them for service support requests and so forth. So it is a plethora of areas that RPAs use, but the largest predominant area that RPAs use is within banking and insurance. So let's go through one of our customers that actually is doing that. So we have a customer, next slide, Miko. The customer is Credigy. And Credigy, we found them, they're based out of Atlanta. They're a subsidiary of an organization part of the National Bank of Canada. And what they do is they do basically investments, and they do financial planning and asset management for a lot of organizations all over the world. And the problem that they were trying to solve is, like, there's so much information that's coming to them through emails, through documents and asset things, and they had to be able to parse out information at a rapid amount of time so they can make quick decisions on should they purchase things, should they divest in items. And what they were using bots to do was to, one, collect all that information, aggregate that information, and give the information to the decision maker so they know what actions to take at the right time. And a lot of that aggregation of information is very, very repetitive in nature. And the idea is that they want to use this technology to actually help them collect the information faster so they can respond. Because speed and time, especially around asset management or making financial divestitures or investments, is very, very critical in time. And so needed it in a very, very short amount of time. What they found, you know, just deploying 25 bots, is that they were able to go in, reduce 15%. You know, they're actually be able to grow their business by 15%, but they're actually reduced a lot of their operation spend just to actually collect information roughly by 40%. And that's huge. That's an area where getting information, collecting information, which is very repetitive in nature, but being able to act upon that information was really, really critical. And Credigy is a great example of a story. Now they're expanding out to customer onboarding. They're expanding out at other areas where they want to go and look for new assets that they want to go and acquire. And they'll use bots to help you collect all that information and make that decision quicker. All right, next slide. Now I would say, when we bought an RPA vendor, we weren't really about becoming the market leader in the RPA space, right? Because if you think about it, pretty much all these RPA vendors do the same thing. There isn't anything that's different. What I want to do was something different with this acquisition. I wanted to commoditize it. And what I mean by that is I wanted to make it so easy for people to get access to and only charge people when they actually get value. So there are things that we have in our roadmap of, creating a community edition where for using bots or using our bots or even building bots using our technology will be free. There's no cost. Because for us, I'm not in the business to go in and build bots. I'm in the business for letting our customers be able to get value from it. And what we'll do is we'll charge based on consumption or consumption in production, where you're actually getting value. And so this was our first year actually in this Magic Quadrant. And typically when you're the very first year, you always start as a niche player, and we're really happy. Now, when you look at the scale of ability to execute in vision, I mean, again, the company that we acquired wasn't very, very old. It originally only had roughly, I think it was 37 customers initially. I'm happy to say we're over 250 customers today in over 18 months, which means that there's so much demand for RPA, and we have a lot of customers that want to use it. But as I start commoditizing it, it's going to start becoming a household name where RPA is not just about spending a whole bunch of subscription dollars to go and build bots, but it's really about making sure that you get value of automation. And we've always said RPA is kind of the tip of the spear for automation, but when you think about automation, it's not just about bots, but it's about how bots work in conjunction with humans, right? Because all bots are not going to do all the work themselves. You know, are there business rules and policies that the bots need to abide by? So business rule management is huge. Are there documents and content that they're going to interact with? Content management is a huge proponent. Are there systems that I need to integrate with so I can collect information? That's where integration technology is. So when we think about automation, it's not just about RP bots. We think that that's the tip of the spear of automation, but it's the holistic plethora of capabilities to drive an automation mission that goes beyond just repetitive tasks. And you know, I'm hoping that Mikko can share with you a little bit of what our RPA technology does today, but I love to spend some time when I'm out there and share with you more customer stories of how people are using it to actually drive their transformation mission around automation. With that, Mikko, to you.
Yeah, hey, thank you, Michael. That was really, really, really good insights. And let's, okay, let's start with me first. Okay, my name is Mikko Piispa, and I am the RPA tech lead for Australia and New Zealand. And in this section, I will cover demonstration and talk about RPA use cases. But let's have a look at the RPA tool first, just a quick glimpse. So markets in these days, they are, as basically as Michael mentioned earlier, are full of RPA products. And sometimes it's made unnecessarily complex to understand what products should we use. So I like to make the focus on these four key areas: ease of use, integrations, AI and chatbots, and cost savings. So let's start with ease of use. Our IBM RPA is a true low-code tool that is easy to use even less experienced RPA developers. But we also support functional JavaScript execution if this is the preferred method. So we have both of these worlds. And just to mention, with the designer tool, what we have, what we call Studio, it comes with unlimited seats. So it's really no stress, share the workload over the teams, as we are not charging on the seats. And integration points. We have over 600 pre-built commands, what we can just drag and drop when we are developing the bots. And it's all these integrations built in to Office tools, Outlooks, we can hook on the email servers, Words, Excel sheets, we can get the information from the PDFs. If you need to hook up and do transactions in SAP, that's all configured in there. It's just drag and drop configurations. And if there is no native integration available, we can just easily use the API calls through the RPA. And naturally, in some cases, if there is no integration at all, we can just mimic human and literally do manual process through the RPA. And then when we go to AI chatbots and IVR, this is a really interesting area now in RPA. So we are really bringing the next generation capabilities to this RPA world. And so what we are doing there, we are bringing the interface to RPA. as RPA is traditionally back office processes, as Michael mentioned earlier, they are like a sledgehammer going bang through the process. But what we are bringing there, we are bringing the, we can get the rich end user experience with the chatbots, and you can literally talk to a bot to make it work. And the thing is, when you are configuring this, you don't need to be an AI expert to do it. So this is all, as I mentioned earlier, drag and drop commands in our studio. And then mention here cost savings and scalability. So once again, this is we are bringing a big key differentiator to a game. So, and this is our concurrent processing. When we are normally using the bots, we typically need to have a host per bot. So think about environment 100 bots running. That means 100 VMs. So in our case, we support concurrent processing and multi-threading. So having a 100 bots, we use typically thumb rule having 15 per host. So instead of 100 VMs, we can run it back in 9. So that is a fantastic way to get the total cost of ownership down. And let's go a bit deeper, and let's start with the use case. So for this, I selected a reconciliation use case because when we are talking about finance and accounting, this is, in my experience, I would say this is probably the most common case where what we do. And so the challenge in here, we have multiple documents coming from multiple different sources, or it might be we are connecting directly to emails or API calls, wherever we do. But the main idea here, it's extremely time consuming and it's error prone. When we are copying and pasting data from documents to another one, there's always this human error chance. So solution, how to do these reconciliations? We can have one bot or two bots doing it. So what bot is doing? It's collecting the data, it compares the data, then it does the reconciliation and creates you a report. So in the report, you can say this data matched, and here is something to verify. So if we look at this on just a quick process map, we can, as I mentioned, we might have a one bot or two bots. So in this case, we could have the one bot is the one who's collecting everything in. And the second bot is literally comparing all the data and making the reporting. So what I'm doing here, the demonstration, is this part of the bot. And let's jump on that demonstration. So here we have a few Excel sheets. So if we look at this one, this is the bank statement. This can be collected from the email, or this can be collected and exported from the system. And here we have our daily report. And our challenge here is to do the reconciliation using these both. And after that's done, what we are going to do, we are having here, we are having here the mismatches. So for verification, and on a bank statement, and for verification on a daily report. And we actually have something old there. Let's take that off. So let's clean up the whole files. And then we have the list of the matched transactions here. Okay, so let's turn these off and let's jump to the product. So here we can see the product. So what we do in here, we first, as I mentioned, I just get the bank statement, then I get the daily report, I compare the files, and eventually I'll make a report and get them together. And this is the thing. Now when I'm demonstrating an RPA, this can be something what you would run as an attended bot. This could be the icon on your desktop, what you click and run it on demand whenever you like, or this can be something that is running on a background as an unattended bot. So we have both options. So let's see when I'm running it, it's gonna be pretty quick. Let's see. So now I started the bot engine. I'm just debugging it directly from the studio. So now it's starting to run it, and we're done. So basically, what just happened? It took 3 seconds, and that was actually slow. Often it takes less than 1 second to process it. So what we managed to do, I had a stopwatch to basically record it. So we started the stopwatch, we got both documents, we read them in, and then after that, we looped through all the transactions, and we find the matched transactions, and then we created a couple documents. So just give me a second. I will show you the results, what we managed to get out from this. Let's first check the matched. So this is what we were able to match from the 2 files. And then this is the interesting part. So when we did the reconciliation, here are the areas where we found the issues. So, and what we did, we have matched transactions, and then we have the thing what to verify. And if we really start thinking about it, what just happened in here, I'll go back to my presentation. So what we had a bit of a challenge in there. We had a really manual process that was taking a time. And if you think how long that would normally take to get through these couple files and do the reconciliation, if you can do it in 5 minutes, that's great. But I'm pretty much like thinking that would take more like 10 minutes or something like that. And what we did, we built a bot for that. And even though now when I needed to run everything manually here, and I started up, I basically loaded up the first bot environment there, it took 3 seconds. If that would be running on a background, it's less than a second process. So what we gained out of that, we just gained enormous productivity gains. And what I would raise up in here is we got 0 errors. So when we are working these kind of processes, the human error is a really big issue that is causing a cumulative issues later on in the workflows. So if we look at this use case, this was the reconciliation. Pretty similar thing if we jump, for example, to invoice processing. Here we also collect the documents, but in this case, we just might collect the documents from, let's say, email, or we might use PEPAL, or we might use any kind of other EDI streams to get the documents in. Then what we can do in a solution, bot is basically collecting everything, and in this case, we can use our built-in OCR capabilities. So we extract all the information, we can do lookups towards your backend system, for example, GL codings, let's check the vendor master data and everything like this. And after that, we pass all to your backend system, financial systems. So once again, optimized operational cost and high productivity. So with these use cases, what we are covering here right now, important thing to understand is the takeout, I would say, from this slide is that RPA is truly a function agnostic tool to use. We literally mimic what the human could do. And so when we are starting to think about the RPA use cases, what we do have in here, I would say the limitation is our imagination, what we have. So whether it's a loan processing where we can bring in the built-in chatbots and OCR capabilities to create a rich end-user experience, or we could be checking the regulation rules with the compliance processes. It's just RPA is a perfect fit to all of these, lowering the process cost and creating the important thing is there, when augmenting the human workforce, what we bring we bring the work satisfaction to our employees by taking these tedious manual repetitive tasks away. And I would say whenever we are having any kind of a processes like this, where we have a lot of data moving, and even though you might have it automated already, but there's legacy systems and there's new systems struggling in communication together, and because there's a lack of API integrations or whatsoever, like in those cases, RPA is your best friend to start doing the integrations in these systems. And this is an interesting study. So this is literally what Michael just mentioned earlier. When we look at the finance and accounting, it used to be number one in here, definitely the number one. But here we can, in this study, we can see the current times with the COVID. So what is going? Everybody are working from home. Everybody are ordering everything from home. So it's IT infrastructures and sales marketing stuff is jumping on a higher, let's say on a pole position here. But as mentioned earlier, it's still finance and accounting that is absolutely having the most RPA installations implemented. And to understand that, let's have a look at the next slide. So it always comes to these main topics. RPA makes things quicker, lowers the operational cost, and so on. But how are we doing that? Well, the thing is, we eliminate the human errors, we increase the throughputs, and we boost the productivity. And as I mentioned earlier, so when we are doing these tedious processes, we are associating like copy and paste, manual entering data. It's really error-prone process. And when bot is doing it, it never gets tired and it never starts making typos. So then when we are increasing the throughput with adding RPA automation here, well, we can definitely see it. Think about the process, what we were running took 3 seconds. So think about running those 3-second processes 24/7. You can definitely start doing more with less. And this is the good thing in here. So it's kind of a trend what you can see how people are starting to get jumping on this RPA journey. So we can literally do more with less. The same staff members what we have, and we can actually, like in the earlier bank use case in there, the same staff can now actually do much more. So this is the good trend what we can see in here. And if we go a bit deeper here to finance and accounting use cases, when we look at these things here, you can see that RPA can literally do anything on here. And just picking up just quickly 4 areas from here, like customer service, we can bring in the chatbots to create a rich user experience. And when we are working with the chatbot, what is already part of the bot itself, then the bot and chatbot can access all these systems and execute the commands immediately. So it's not the traditional chatbot that is handing it over. When we do, we execute it immediately. Accounts payable, we can leverage our OCR capabilities with semi-unstructured data, reduce the human errors, application, let's say credit card applications, mortgage processes, bringing in the chatbots and all that kind of stuff that really makes it, I would say, well, definitely more productive. So other huge area, what we can see was the huge automation needs are supply chain. So and it's really easy to understand why. If we look at these processes, every single process what we have in here, each one of these are loaded with transactions. And the thing is, and every single one has integrations. So this is one of the ways how I see RPA. It's kind of like an intelligent message broker between the things. It sits over the infrastructure. It's like a glue bringing all the data sources together. And when we get all the information together, we can create accurate reporting and, like this earlier, this reconciliation process. So these are the really data, a lot of systems connected. These are basically bread and butter for RPA. Okay, so let's have a quick recap here. So about the RPA product itself, wherever you want to run it, we literally support it. So if you want to run it as a SaaS service, that's fine. If you want to run it on your premises, it's also okay. Or if you want to run it on a Red Hat containerized environment, yeah, that's perfectly fine too. Whatever is the way and wherever you want to run it, is it your private cloud, on your premises, or public cloud, other vendors, you just name it, and we can do that. So then what we do have, we have unattended bots. These are the bots that used to do the basic back office processes. And then we have attended bots, like for example, the reconciliation, what I did in there, that quick process, that can be something you execute from your desktop just on demand. Then the thing what we do, what is our huge strength, is the integrated chatbots. So we are literally bringing the interface to RPA. So it's not anymore that backend process. We have built-in capture in our product, unlimited built-in capture. We have dashboards in our product, dashboards and reporting. You don't have to go and get any kind of other additional analytic tools to create the dashboards. It's all built in. Then concurrent execution and workload management. So these are already built in to a basic platform. So you don't have to get any other license levels to get these orchestrators in. So we make sure that the performance is always good. Whether you run multiple concurrent processes or you want to execute your bots in a queue, these are making sure that it's going fine. Then low-code editor, as I mentioned earlier, so we just drag and drop. You don't have to be an AI expert to be able to do that. And what helps with that, we have this built-in native AI functionalities. We have fuzzy logics, we have machine learnings, everything are built in the product itself. So when you are using it, you use it through the low-code interface. But I would say the most take on from this slide is this end-to-end platform. So what are we having here? When you are starting your journey with RPA, it's not a point solution. So it's automation at scale. We literally enable you to start taking the steps towards the hyper automation. So I think that's the part what I would like to cover in here. And I think now it's a good time to step to questions and answers, Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Mikko and Michael. That was really good, quite exciting. So I think for most of us, the next hire is going to be a bot, right? I've got a few things come through in chat. Just let me process and ask you some of the questions. I think you've covered some of it. My questions have come in a bit earlier. Is like, what's the level of coding skills required to get the bot up and running? So if you can throw some more details onto that.
Okay, so let's say if you have any kind of background to understand like the for loops and if conditions, that would help, but it's absolutely not necessary. So I'm just thinking, for example, the POCs, what I have been building within last, let's say, half a year. In those POCs, everything what I have done is drag and drop. I haven't done any scripting or whatsoever in there. So this is a really true low-code, no-code tool that I would say the perfect audience to start working with that could be, for example, a business analyst who already knows the process maps and the pain points in a business processes.
Yeah, now we've seen examples of finance teams being self-sufficient and taking this on. I don't think, Michael, do you have a view on that, on the skill set?
I always think of these bots as they're macros. So if you know how to build an Excel macro, that's the level of skill set that you would need to do. And as what Mikko was mentioning, to do loops and logic of how to build a macro in Excel, that's the level of skill set that you'll need. Now, over time, what we want to do is to make our tool much easier, much more visual. and interpretive. And when we're talking about intelligent bots, we want the engine to actually start writing the bot scripts in itself. And so you're going to see through the investments that we're making over 2022 is really getting to the point of native bots being built by the engine, and you're going to revalidate it. You're going to test it and make sure that it meets the business requirements that you have. But we are seeing this flow of maturity that are happening with technologies that are in the automation space.
All right, nice. Another quick one is, can you tell us a bit more about the unattended bots?
Okay, so the unattended bots and attended bots, basically the difference on these, unattended bots are the processes, like the back office processes that are basically running under the bonnet. So these might be, for example, if we take the reconciliation demo, what we had earlier, we could have unattended bot, the first one that is collecting all the information to, let's say, certain, for example, folders, and then we could have attended bot to click to run it, and whenever you want to execute and get these reconciliation reports. So difference is the other one is user basically on demand executed, and unattended is the one that is running as a kind of like a Windows service on the background.
All right. One final question. What does concurrent execution mean? I think you mentioned a bit about that, but concurrent execution.
I could talk about that, Mikko. So today, most RP vendors, they charge per bot install, which means if you install the bot, then you have to pay a license for it. In our model, it doesn't matter how much you install. So if you want, we can have a bot for every single employee. There's no cost. We don't charge for install. We charge when there's value being created, which means the bots are being executed in a concurrent amount of time, which means, like, for instance, in Mikko's example for unattended bots, if you got a large amount, let's say 1 million transactions that you want to do, you can probably do it with one bot, but it'll take very long, right? Yeah. But if you have 10 bots, you think of it as 10 robots doing the work of maybe 20 people, then it's done concurrently, which means the transactions are happening at the same time. And so where we've changed our pricing model, which is very different than our other vendors in the marketplace, is that we don't really care about every single employee having a bot. I mean, we actually encourage them to have it, but we only want to charge them when they actually use it and when they're getting value from it. And that's really where our concurrent license model is much more cost effective for people that want to just get started. There's no reason to buy a bunch of bots for every employee. Just buy the bot workloads that you need to get done at a concurrent amount of time.
Excellent. On that note, speaking of licensing, what we want to go through now is as I mentioned earlier, that there is an offer that we've got as well. So, but before we go into that, really would like to thank Mikko and Michael for giving us the detailed overview. And for many of us who are attending today that I spoke to, this is a first introduction to RPA, and there's a big push around the place to try and integrate RPA in the finance teams, especially amongst the clients that we have. So I think this is a very, very good introduction for them. So today, by the sheer nature of you attending this webinar, what we've got is Sir Michael has been really generous in providing us with some excellent deals. So there are two things that we'll be offering you, and we'll put this in an email after with the recording of this. Is the first thing is that Michael is offering a 50% off on the software cost, on the cost of RPA for the first year. So that's very generous. I've been in and around IBM for a long time, so this I don't see this very often. So thanks a lot, Michael, for this for our audience. And the second thing that we will do for you is if you've got a potential use case or something that you're thinking about and you're unsure of whether does it fit into this space or not, or is it even possible or not, and you don't have, you need to build a business case to get into this, in the email that I send after this with the recording, I'll put in a link for a calendar invite. Book a meeting with me, and I'll pull in Miko. What we'll do is we'll have a chat to you and figure out collectively between us and you whether, number one, is there feasibility to have RPA solve your problem, and secondly, also give you the framework of how and what and how to prioritize things and how it will look in the new world order. And that there's no charge. So there's only limited slots that would be available. So at the moment, we're looking at only being able to do it till the end of this year. So if you're thinking about something, I really encourage you to just book half an hour, 1 hour with me. I'll pull in Miko and we'll go through that. And if it is something that is a goer, then what we'll do is we'll use Michael's offer 50% off and get the business case up and running and get the project going. Typically, RPA projects are very quick to deploy. So it would be very, very interesting to see some of them going around. So thanks once again, Miko and Michael. Thank you all for attending. Looking forward to talking to everyone later. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks, bye.
All right.